Welcome to Mastering CS Candid Leader Insights, the podcast where we deep dive into the world of customer success with industry experts. I'm Irina Cismas, your host, and today's guest is Violeta Yuste, Head of Customer Success at Userguest. Did I pronounce wrong your name? I didn't ask.
It was a funny way of pronouncing my name, indeed. That's totally fine. I'm used to it.
Violeta.
That's Violeta, indeed.
Violeta.
It's Violeta.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, I tried to say it is very international. But
oh, no worries. No international. Violeta Yuste. Exactly like that.
Okay. So, Violeta, welcome. And thank you for accepting my invitation today. You've led customer success teams across various industries, from hospitality to digital marketing. And now I'm super curious. If you could describe your career journey at a hotel experience, what kind of hotel would it be and why?
So first of all, Irina, thank you so much for inviting me to this session. It's really nice. And I'm sure we're going to have like a nice conversation, you and I. I love the question, by the way. It's a question I've never been asked ever in my life. So in this case, I define my career as this kind of like exotic resort in a hidden destination, something like that. Why that? Yeah, it's kind of like a place without any guarantees. It's not a hyper touristic destination, but it's a very exciting journey to start leading. It's like opening something big that didn't exist before, plenty of opportunities, many dreams around that, many illusions, many different possibilities, and most important, plenty of fun. So I would define it like, yeah, definitely like a exotic resort. Let's say it.
It's a fascinating way to look at your career like this. And now I want to go into the specifics. Hospitality and digital marketing. How do the customer expectations differ between the two? What do they have in common? What do they have the opposite? I'm curious.
Okay. Here, I think that would be great first to remind the audience what is customer success. No? So we're talking about making the experience of our clients the best. How we can do that? Normally, we build strong relationships with the customers, not punctual, not short-term. We have to take a look at the future and try to understand their needs, their goals, to provide tailored solutions and to provide a tailor-made relationship as well. Even if we don't want to state it in such a squared rule, is a tailor-made relationship, the one that we are building. And if you think about it, isn't that exactly the same goal that hospitality has? Hospitality try to have tailor-made solutions for the guests, tailor-made experience, tailor-made rooms and all of that. So it's kind of the same. CS is very related to hospitality. And this is why it's not a surprise that many people from hospitality finish their journeys in customer success as well and in the hospitality world. But I think if we merge about your question between hospitality or marketing, we have to talk about the different nuances that we have with one industry and the other. The first one, hospitality, not necessarily in this prior order, but I would mention that thing that is very important is relationship. Then you have soft skills. Then you have data. Of course, data is very important. Revenue, monthly recurring revenue, business, and all of that and performance. But we're always going to be looking at relationships and soft skills. Whereas in digital marketing, we don't necessarily follow exactly the same order. Here, we're going to be talking about data, numbers first. And after, even if both of our clients are down to earth, the second one, marketing, are going to be taking a look at the data and the data analysis and the numbers and the conversion and the revenue. And if everything makes sense, then we can start our relationship together. So it's kind of like the same, but a bit different. In hospitality, there's always kind of like a more holistic or like more abstract approach. This is why it's very important to have like customer success managers with soft skills and empathy. In this case, SaaS could be complicated. You have to explain how to utilize a determinate tech tool to different stakeholders. And this is why we're always going to emphasize on the fact of trying to speak the client language. We're trying to adapt and adjust to each kind of different clients or stakeholders that we're going to talk to. Nevertheless, we're talking to a hospitality client. Nevertheless, we're talking to a marketing client. If we speak the client language, we will understand which are the priors to talk to them and to try to organize or train our thoughts into that direction with them.
I want to thank you for the analogy that you made. But even if I'm working on the marketing side on Custify, I started my career as a performance digital marketer. And to be honest, I resonated very well when you mentioned the journey. Start with the data, with the conversion, have the foundation, the analytical foundation, and then the relationship comes on top. I didn't thought about it, but you basically described my experience. So thank you for this. I've always said that I've been working in customer success for many, many years prior to me working in Custify, but I just didn't know it. Now, how does a typical day look like for you as a head of CS at the Userguest? How do you start your day? What does it involve? I'm curious.
So one of the things that maybe I like to showcase is the fact that my company, Userguest, is a 100% remote, 100% delocalized and a flexible company. I never spend my days commuting. I don't travel to go to work unless I'm traveling already, or unless I'm going to a co-working, or unless I'm going to a cafe, because that day I want to go working into this place. But I don't really start with a fresh mind, being in the place that I want to be every single morning, and with the flexibility that I can adapt and adjust my daily basis based on the needs of that day. Besides that cool part, the rest of my day is like kind of like the same day of a head of customer success, which is going to be plenty of one-to-ones with the team, plenty of data analysis, plenty of working with the funnels, the customer journeys. This is actually one of my favorite parts, like trying to get the perspective on the owners, like on the client's eyes on their day, to try and understand which is their customer journey experience and try to adapt and adjust towards the OKRs or the KPIs that we have as a company, which are normally based on generating revenue to our clients, how we are adapting in order to help the clients to have the visibility of what they're supposed to have this visibility. We need to be a simple tool that is generating the money. How we are putting ourselves on the shoes of our clients in order to help them see exactly that. So for that, we have an amazing team of customer success, ops, managers, and different strategic roles that are working on that direction, defining the one-to-ones. That would be a big piece, a big chunk of the day, analyzing lots of data, lots of numbers. We were talking before about the numbers. Of course, we get them as well. But if you see, first, I talk about the one-to-ones with the people. It's a CS mindset, always like that, like hospitality. And of course, lots of music on the background. My life has to be surrounded by music. So in this case, I'm going to have my full capacity on with some good sound on the background.
Speaking of data, which KPIs do you focus on to keep your team aligned and effective? Because I'm not actively working in the CS shoes, but I know that CSMs can get distracted and very busy in a very short amount of time. And at the end of the day, they can be burned out and overloaded with all those tasks that seem to be, I would say, mandatory, urgent, and might not be. And they do not manage to influence the right KPIs. So how do you make sure your team is aligned and is effective and productive without actually being burned out and covered in all those tasks?
This is very typical. It's not rocket science, but we need to be very aligned on communication. OKRs need to be mandatory that everyone knows them by heart. Which is your OKR, X% of churn, or X% of X MRR, or whatever are the metrics that you are considering. But you are totally right. The problem that we tend to have in customer success is that you can go so granular on the life of the clients and that you have to navigate through a big OKR of the company down to the small request of this small client in this small island that is asking this to you because this is affecting one of the rooms. So you have to understand how to get from here to here without getting too distracted and prioritize everything on which you need to be working on. So in this case, to be honest, communication is key. These one-to-ones that I'm having with my teams, normally they go based on that direction. We work on those metrics when we are talking about those one-to-ones. But of course, a big chunk of my time as well is dedicated to understanding how they are feeling. How they're feeling is not only how you're doing, which is great, but as well how you're feeling with the workload that you have, and try to fragment and defragment which is that workload that you're having. Once we have this, we get granular into this workload. We try to redirect it to the OKRs. How is this affecting those OKRs that we have? So again, not rocket science, but if you have 4 problems that you are contemplating, how is this affecting those let's say 10 OKRs that you have. If this is affecting 7 OKRs, okay, that's prior 1. If this is affecting 3, maybe that's not going to be prior 1. And this is not affecting any OKR. Okay, why are we talking about that? So in this case, the rest of OKRs is all the same that all the head of customer success could have. We're talking about churn, retention rate, satisfaction from the clients, timings of onboardings, upsell, MRR. After we have our little secret sauce, the little recipe of KPIs that make, I think, a successful journey in customer success, but I won't share them unless you join the team.
So that's a very good answer. Earlier, you mentioned some roles that you are in the team, and now you mentioned about KPIs. Do you organize your team based on the customer journey, or how do you structure the team?
Actually, I think we can discuss about it a bit because that can work sometimes and it's not necessarily going to be working all the times. You really need that in order to fragment your team. And this could be something that is, you look at the partition of your team, you can specialize your customer success manager in different roles. And that's really cool because sometimes their soft skills are going to be redirected into one direction or the other direction. You're going to have the renewer, the upseller, the onboarder, the performer, many different roles. But depending on the structure of your team, this is going to make sense. Or on the contrary, this is going to be fragmenting more the team and fragmenting more the clients. So you have to adjust it. You have to find the perfect balance in order to try to find, again, this perfect recipe that would make sense for the client, number one.
We started this discussion with your definition of customer success. And it's interesting that you started it with that because I also share the same view. Every company has its own definition. We call it CS, but in some cases it's either proactive, it's either reactive, or you name it. And I realized that it's not important how it's called. It's more important what does it mean. So I want to ask you, how do you prove internally the value of your team? How do you advocate for your team internally?
This is one of the funniest parts of my job, like trying to help, for example, a tech colleague or a marketing colleague or a finance guy that their numbers make sense and they should be celebrating those numbers with us. It's funny. But as well, I have to admit that it's been already 15 years that I'm trying to explain to my family and my friends what I'm doing on a daily basis. And it's complicated sometimes. So I've learned a lot out of my personal life in order to try to introduce and implement why CS or customer success is important internally. And for me, it's all about giving the numbers that they consider that they can have a certain impact. If I tell them like MRR is 2000, they're going to be like, yeah, cool, nice. I don't even know what does that mean because even, for example, a tech colleague is going to tell me like the deploy timing is going to be this average of that. I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, but how is it going to be impacting my client? At the end of the day, the only thing that we need to do is trying to speak the client language, trying to let this tech colleague, for example, know how many clients he's saving for churning us thanks to that tech implementation that he's achieved. This is another side of the story. They will understand that thanks to this thing they implemented, the impact that this had is to save 4 clients. And thanks to that, the portfolio has increased of 4%. And thanks to that, we're way more aligned to the OKR. So we don't need to pretend that everybody will understand all the OKRs of a company because I think that will never happen. That will be a nice to have, but it's very complicated. So again, speaking everybody's language.
I realize you mentioned OKRs, and we also have it implemented at Custify. I've been working in several other organizations who had the same framework, but I felt it's often hard to make the connection between the company OKRs and what you do on a day-to-day. How do you divide? How do you do those micro KPIs that help you work on those OKRs? What's your secret recipe? How do you manage to divide the smaller parts?
Okay. So honestly, here, what we do on the team is that we work with our own OKRs. Mm-hmm. So we understand which are the OKRs of the company, and then we escalate this down. Now we have all the information. We have the company mission. We have the company vision. And now I want you guys to propose me which are going to be the OKRs that you guys are going to be having impact in order to deliver those company OKRs. So actually, it's a team that is proposing their own OKRs and they want to get aligned with them. And thanks to that, the impact that they're going to have at the end of the day on the general and common OKRs, it's so evident. It really works.
It's a top-down and bottom-up approach. It's a collaboration between the two. What can I say? It might be cool to work at Userguest. So for everyone who is watching,
we have fun. We have coffee times as well. Even if we work on remote, we try to bond a lot with the others, and we see each other on a quarterly basis. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you now, how hard is it for you to keep the team spirit united since you are working in a remote environment? How do you make sure that the team doesn't feel distributed and missed out from the whole thing?
So I think one of the most important things that you need to understand when you work on remote is that you don't have your neighbor to ask him a question, or you don't have the other neighbor saying out loud about a process that he know about and you didn't, and you're learning out of that. So this is why it's mandatory, and you need to give so much importance to the fact of documenting everything. Everything has to be documented, but not only documented, everything has to make sense and to be easy to find on the documentation, because it's really complicated for you to understand everything when you're not surrounded of your seniors or the people that know more than you. So first things would be to make sure that documentation makes a big chunk of the first process. Once you have this, you have to foment the interaction between the teams. You have Slack. We work, for example, with Slack. Slack has the huddles. You just have to call somebody and you're going to be on that call with that person. Of course, we all very polite. But sometimes when you just have a question, just huddle that person and he's going to be there. So we're trying to increase this level of associating Slack to a table. We're all here together, so just Slack me whenever you want, and we can discuss about this question that you may have or not. Another thing that is very important is that you don't need to sell the dream of something that doesn't exist. At the end of the day, we're a remote company. This is going to be like that. But we all have the same values. If the values are the same, if you work along with the same values as the rest of your colleagues, you're building something great, and you don't have to lose focus of that just because you're not on the same room as that person. It's not going to be frustrating for them because we are very clear since the beginning that we work on remote. So we only work with people that are glad and keen on working that way. And nevertheless, when they join us, they feel this connection and this communication and this transparency that is so unique to a company that's so remote. So as I was mentioning to you, we have those coffee times. There's a coffee break. We just take your cat when it's here, we pet the cat, we tell about the other one, what we're going to be doing on the weekend. It's like when you go to take a coffee with your colleague. But after, for example, we have those kind of like interactions between us that are so pure and so naive. And it's like the kind of communication that you're going to have with your coworker. One of the things as well on the counter side that we have to admit it is that the onboarding piece of the ramp up piece of a newcomer takes a bit longer. Takes longer because he's not here to ask all of the questions to everyone. So it's very important to assign that person to a buddy, to show that person about all this documentation. And during the first week, as a manager, you really need to be invested with that person to try to provide as many guidance as possible. Because if you're losing that person since the beginning, it's going to be complicated to reconduct. But if you have it since the beginning, it's going to be good. It's going to be brilliant.
I have to ask, whenever you are building your team, you are recruiting, because you mentioned the values and we share the same values, we work for the same company mission, we are aligned. How do you make sure that the person who joins your team actually share the same values? What's your recruiting strategy?
Without giving too many details, honestly, it's all about having honest conversations. I'm very interested on the soft skills and the deliveries that person had in the past. Our job in customer success is you're not a spinal doctor. You don't need to be studying for 6 years in order to be able to do a surgery of the back of a patient. You can learn out of it. This is why, for me, one of the most important skills that I check when I'm interviewing someone is the learning curve and the learning speed curve that person could have. So this is actually what I'm focusing the most on. How is this person digesting the information that I'm giving to them, and how they are reproducing that in a solid way and in a consistent way that is going to tell me, okay, they took the pieces of the puzzle without knowing all the context and they are delivering something to me that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I'm going to be checking Friday one for sure. Then flexibility is number 2. You need to be flexible if you're working in a remote company, and if you're working in customer success, and if you're working in a startup. You need to be flexible because things change all the time. And then here, I'm looking for many people with hospitality background. As I was mentioning, hospitality is already APC of serving the client, speaking the client language, but as well, a Userguest is based on increasing revenue for hotels. So in this case, when you can put yourself on the shoes of an owner of a hotel or the head of marketing of a group of a chain of hotels or whatever, you can put yourself on their shoes, you will know how to speak their language again. So you're going to be able to just touch the correct button. So it's a bit of a mix here and there, but it makes like a good sauce again. I cannot complain.
You mentioned about soft skills. I want to ask you about the technology piece because I know that Userguest uses AI to boost the customer engagement part. So how have you incorporated the AI into your CS and what benefits have you seen so far?
Sure. Everybody talks about AI. First, I think we need to understand what is AI because there's been many concepts and everybody's associating AI to ChatGPT, which is great. We love ChatGPT, but we need to understand different aspects that artificial intelligence can bring to the journey. So in this case, I can explain you about 2 ways that we're using AI. The first one will be algorithmically speaking. What we do at the end of the day is to use intelligence to help our clients match dates, such as occupancy needs, with the predicted booking behavior of our customers when visitors. It's a bit like a but if you understand the concept, we match dates with the predicted behavior that the guests are going to be booking based on the website visitors. All of that is going to be helping us to give lots of information in order to predict what is most likely to be happening. So what is going to be most likely to be booked, what is most likely to happen in the future to your hotel, but as well, what is going to be happening on the downside? When are you going to be with only 40% of occupancy rate? When are you going to start having some troubles with the guests of your hotel? So in this case, again, we have this magic sauce for hotels that help them generate bookings at the end of the day, thanks to this logic. Many algorithms, and we learn out of those algorithms in order to continue feeding the logic of those numbers and to make them smarter. That's the first one. That's the algorithm. And then customer success-wise, in this case, we are starting at the moment to work on different tools that are matching all the criteria that we want regarding AI. So for example, in this case, we want to have the ability to generate recommendations to the customers using the right data points. So right now we are doing that on a human basis, which is great. We are never going to stop doing that because this is one of the big added values that we have. But we want to try to identify revenue opportunities and the right initiatives that the client needs in order to have an impact on revenue. Again, human approach is very important, but we want to reconduct that as well with all the pieces that perhaps we're not able to reach thanks to AI.
That's super, super interesting. We all know the apps that help us book accommodation from a user perspective. And I was always fascinated of the recommendation they are making and how do they basically predict the whole thing. So for me, that was the real brain of how you do this part. With all the things that you mentioned, what's that one thing that you want to focus until the end of the year? What's your main priority? Because I know that CS usually have multiple priorities today and tomorrow they are no longer available and things change. So we all know that, speaking about the flexibility. But what's the most important thing that you want to make sure that you tick from your list?
On that note, do you know how they call us in the companies? They call us the octopus. We are the octopus because we have many legs and arms and we are touching everything. We are in marketing, we're in finance, we're in sales, we're in tech, we're in products, so we're everywhere. So this is why when they tell us, or when you're asking me like, which is the one main priority, is like, oh my God, just one. So in this case, I think I will go with something very simple just because we're doing very good as well. At the moment, we're really working on the new customer journey funnels. We're going to be launching the new client journey, which is going to be great. And I'm really looking forward to it. So that would be one of my priorities. But we are getting really good at reducing churn. Okay. So I think my next milestone, I'm not going to give you the number until I get the number at the end of the year, which I'll share with you. But today, I will say continue reducing the churn rate, which, by the way, we reduced it by 8 points on the last 6 months. So we're doing a really good approach here.
What do you need in order to make it happen?
Honestly, that's the marvelous part of my job. I think we're already going into that direction. Okay. All the steps and all the stones that we already put on the way and on the path are going and are leading us towards that churn number that we need to reach. I'm really confident that we don't need anything else than the things that we already have. So forecasting system more accurate, strengthening a bit more some partnerships. But yeah, everything's very feasible.
You for sure don't need distractions. You for sure need, I would say, understanding and making sure that nobody bothers your team and lets you do the thing.
Yes, but everybody needs a bit of us, which is normal. And we're more than happy to help everyone. We're a small company and we work in a very united way. This is something that always came across in all the culture surveys. Everybody loves everybody in this company. Of course, something can happen sometime. But we are so aligned, and so the strength that we have all together, it's so valuable that we don't want to break it. So it's fine.
Speaking about this cross-team collaboration, can you name a project that you are proud of that involved actually multiple teams? Because you mentioned that you were close also to product, to sales, to marketing, to support. What was one initiative where you were all together on the same page?
Actually, I can mention to you one that we're leading and finishing at the moment, which is the integration between our tool and another CRM and a couple more tools. So we are doing like a meta integration of many tools into just one in order to be able to go way more aligned to this proactive approach rather than reactive. We are always into the proactivity. So in order to deliver that, we need the tech, we need product, we need marketing as well, and we need sales. So everybody has been involved and we're just engaged into this project, which is great. For me, it's the biggest project we're working at the moment.
Last question. Before we wrap up, I have to ask, who has been your most influential mentor? And what's that best piece of advice that you still follow?
I learned from many, many people, and I keep on learning from them and other new people that I've come across in the path. But when I have to tell somebody about somebody that I've been always looking up on my professional journey, I always talk about Olivier Bracard. He's the CEO of another company that I was working before, Hosco. And he's the person that has been the most inspiring leader for me in this case. He's a true example of resilience. And is this kind of person that if you stay very close to him, you can listen his brain working full speed. And you just want to try to seize everything going on there and try to gather all the train of thoughts and understand what's going on in his brain to replicate. And it's impossible. His brain works with such a speed and such a comprehensive and efficient way. Is great. But not only that, not only because he's been a really good CEO, but I learned something from him that is an invaluable prize, is that you can be a good person and a great professional. And for me, being a CEO with a gigantic heart is something that sometimes doesn't happen. They sell us a dream sometimes that everybody has a big heart and all of that. But here I'm talking about something evident that I've experienced. And this is something that really helped me for my future companies, my future professional adventures, to always continue focusing on this kind of companies with these kind of CEOs and these kind of professionals that just surrounded of. I don't believe that an amazing professional should be cold-blooded all the time. You have to be sometimes, but you can be a great person at the end of the day. So this is why I only want to be surrounded by great professionals and good people.
Thank you so much, Violeta, for sharing your insights with us today. And a big thank you to all of you who listened this episode. I hope you found this conversation as valuable as I did. And until next time, stay safe and keep mastering customer success.